Hello and welcome to The Green Stream, a podcast brought to you by Sustainable Business Network Detroit, a network of partnerships between Southeast Michigan stakeholders, innovators, and changemakers. Each partner is on a mission to advance and amplify sustainable business practices, and we're here to learn from, share, and help activate a sustainable way forward for Greater Detroit. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a review and join the conversation on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Blue Sky. And head over to our website, sbn-detroit.org. Now, let's listen in to our conversation with today's sustainability leaders.
All right, well, thanks for having us here. I'm Tepfirah Rushdan, Director of Sustainability with the City of Detroit. I'm so happy to be here, and we'll introduce our panelists here. I'll start with Zahra.
Hi, I'm Zahra Seblini. I'm also with the City of Detroit in the Office of Sustainability, and I'm the Senior Energy Analyst.
Hey, Kendal.
Yeah, hello. My name's Kendal Kuneman. I'm the Executive Director of a nonprofit called Detroit 2030 District.
All right. What each of you just start with just kind of your role with either the city or the nonprofit that you work with, and tell us more what you do kind of every day.
I can start with that. I work primarily administering the benchmarking ordinance. So that means doing a lot of the kind of front end, introducing building owners to the ordinance, walking them through some of the steps to compliance. And then I also issue the compliance check at the end of the due date. And I work closely with the 2030 district to do lots of outreach and communication around the ordinance.
All right. Kendal, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I'm the Executive Director of the Detroit 2030 District. And we partnered with the City of Detroit. So we're working closely with your office and closely with Zahra specifically. And this is all funded through a community energy management grant from the state of Michigan, from Eagle. And through that grant, we are supporting the Office of Sustainability, like Zahra said, on outreach, but also we're focusing in on supporting buildings in Detroit that we think are going to have the most challenges with complying with the benchmarking ordinance. So through our scope of work with you all, we really focus in on houses of worship, affordable multifamily properties, childcare and education centers, and nonprofits. So a lot of our outreach efforts have been really focused on trying to reach and build as much awareness around this ordinance with that group of buildings, as well as all the other commercial and multifamily buildings in the city that are required to comply.
All right. Well, Zahra, can you just tell us exactly what the benchmarking ordinance is?
Yes, I can. So the benchmarking ordinance was passed in 2023 by the City Council, and it requires buildings above 25,000 square feet to report their energy and water use to the city on an annual basis. We need monthly data, and we use Energy Star Portfolio Manager as the main tool to kind of communicate from the building owners and their utilities to the city.
Okay. Anything to add, Kendal? I feel like you were a big part of making sure this ordinance got passed in the city. Why it was important to you?
Yeah, thanks, Tepfirah. Just to share a little bit of background, there were a lot of efforts through the Green Task Force Energy Waste Reduction Committee over a number of years to get this benchmarking ordinance adopted in the city. And we were sort of following behind the first city in Michigan to adopt a similar ordinance, City of Ann Arbor. But this ordinance is very foundational for any future energy efficiency work and building performance standard work in the city. So we felt it was very important, but it also really allows us to have a reason to connect with building owners and managers on the topic of energy efficiency.
Okay. Well, I really always, every time I talk to you, Kendal, I want to applaud kind of the work and advocacy work that you've done to get us this far in the city around energy efficiency. So thank you for that. work and your history around this. Um, I want to jump into the report that was published. You all, Zahra and Kendall, you all worked together on this report. Tell us about what the findings are, what the report is all about, where people can find it. Let's jump in.
I can start. So the report was published in January of 2026, and it shares compliance and a little bit of energy and water use information from 2024's required year of reporting and 2025. So it exists right now on the City of Detroit's Energy Division website under new updates. And I think the main kind of findings from this report is we're hovering around a 20% compliance rate. That looks like around 60,000 square feet of buildings in compliance, which is huge. And a couple of kind of key things that we can find in the report is a look into median site EUI across the city's building types. So if we look at one of the pages in the report, we could see like commercial buildings that are reporting in Detroit are actually lower than the national median EUI, which is really interesting. And houses of worship that are reporting in Detroit are almost double the national median EUI. So those are kind of two really interesting kind of things that I see when I look at this, and what it kind of tells a story about in Detroit.
You know, I saw that in the report, and tell us more about what that means, Kendall. What does that mean to you that houses of worship and community-facing organizations are seeing lower EUI or higher EUI, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I want to applaud you all, your team, Tepfirah and Zahra, because I think you guys, I mean, this is definitely a report, that came from your office, and I'm just excited about the awareness that it's going to bring, additional awareness. We know that there's an ordinance. People kind of know what that means and the reporting piece, but this report is really helping kind of give that first report out of where, with the information that the city has received through this ordinance, what kind of, like Zahra said, the storytelling piece, what is coming from this. So that is really interesting, like the houses of worship and having that initial data that's just showing that we have a lot of need to increase energy efficiency of those buildings. There's likely a lot of repairs, that are needed at those buildings. So, and that's always been my hope with this ordinance, is that through the data that's captured, we can figure out where to begin to direct resources or programming towards. So for me, I think it's just the start of the storytelling that's going to come from this data as we get more buildings participating and in compliance.
Yeah. And Zahra, what does it mean to you when you hear these results from the initial couple of years of reporting that commercial buildings have a lower EUI? So does that mean Detroit is doing good?
I will say we have a really highly developed downtown center. And I think that's definitely something that we are proud of in the city of Detroit, that there are a lot of buildings that do take energy efficiency seriously and do pursue LEED certification in those kind of bigger commercial properties. So that's something to celebrate.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm a building owner in the city. Not really, but for pretend, I'm a building owner in the city. What can I do to get on this bandwagon? How do I implement strategies in my building to reduce energy? What does that actually mean for me as a building owner? I'll leave it up to anyone who would like to respond.
I guess I'll just start because you asked a good question, Tepfirah, and just to provide some clarification to anybody listening. A lot of people, when they hear that there's an ordinance, they assume that they're required to make an improvement. But this is strictly a reporting ordinance, a reporting requirement. It does not require a building to do anything more than that. However, as seen in other major cities that have similar ordinances, having that information available to the building owner or manager, more likely than not, leads them down a path to try to do some sort of improvement at their building, because they can more easily see and understand how much they're spending on utilities. So I know for us at Detroit 2030 District, we try to leverage existing resources that are available and point building owners and managers to those resources. So, for example, the state of Michigan has a recap program, which is an opportunity for buildings to get free energy assessments. So usually the next step after a building is benchmarking is like, so what do I do now? And so we like to find where those existing resources are so that we can connect the buildings to them, and those buildings can get an energy assessment and really see from a return on investment perspective, like where they could get where they could see the most savings from doing improvements. So a lot of what we're talking about is really saving on operating expenses, saving money for these buildings. But it all starts with first initially tracking and then doing an assessment of your building and ideally implementing some of those improvements.
I'm glad you made that distinction. It's really important. I know that the report, Zahra, highlights some of the challenges and successes in administering this new ordinance in the city. Can you go over some of the successes and how we got there, and some of the challenges that you faced in working with building owners?
Yeah, I'd love to. So one of the successes that we found is that we actually had a lot of buildings that were already in voluntary energy benchmarking compliance, I guess, where because of a lot of work of organizations like the 2030 District, a lot of buildings in Detroit were already in Energy Star Portfolio Manager. They were already connected to some automated energy and water updates to their property. And so there was kind of an immediate group of buildings that we really didn't have to do much outreach for or much technical assistance for. So that was really amazing. I think that was a well-timed ordinance and well strategized. One of the challenges I know that we did have was kind of the greater awareness of the ordinance. A lot of building owners, when we spoke to them after maybe a year of outreach, they're like, oh, I didn't know this was a law. And so we're like, no, it's a law.
It's a law.
And so we are kind of learning lessons from those experiences, and we're re-strategizing and essentially tackling awareness through building sector. And so we focused really hard on houses of worship in the first half of this quarter. We're really focusing our outreach and engagement to that building sector. We're pivoting to multifamily affordable properties now, and then commercial and industrial afterwards. So we're kind of learning to like, okay, let's just focus on the smaller group of people, really focus on getting everybody on this list aware of the ordinance and on the kind of first couple steps to compliance.
And I understand that Kendal 2030 District has been supporting with these efforts. Can you tell us about what that support looks like and what you're experiencing with building owners?
Yeah, I think awareness is still a really big part of this work. And I know your team has been, figuring out the most effective ways to even notify buildings that they are required to comply. And I think that has been a little bit more of a challenge than we anticipated. But at the same time, I think other cities have had those same challenges, identifying the right person who is going to see that information and know what to do with it. and how to get into compliance. So
I guess it could be like the facilities manager, or it could be the owner, or it could be the
yeah,
person that's there day to day. Yeah, so kind of finding the right person
yeah.
and
And
have the
so
conversation.
yeah, I mean, so we've been trying to find ways to push this information out, even encouraging anyone who works in sustainability or in a similar profession. Um, we all interact with buildings. We work in buildings, live in buildings, visit buildings. Really, asking questions, asking, is this building in compliance? A lot of people want to get involved. I've heard even from people who live in multifamily buildings, and they're like, well, what can I do as an individual that lives in this building? I'm like, well, have you talked to your landlord? Have you? So there's lots of ways. I mean, that might not be the best way of getting the information out, but we all interact with buildings every day. Um,
Mhm.
so it's really figuring out more ways to reach folks. But what we've been doing is in partnership with your team is holding data jams. And
Okay.
we've done a few virtual, but mainly they've been in person. And we've done
Okay, wait,
them,
wait. What
yeah.
what is a data jam? Tell me all about
Yeah. Zara, do you want to share what a data jam is?
I would love to. So, a data jam is an in-person event where we present a little bit of information about the ordinance, and then we take the second half of the event to go on people's laptops with them and walk through all the steps of setting up your Energy Star portfolio manager, entering data, connecting with the city, all that good stuff, so that people leave the event either knowing exactly what to do to reach compliance or already reaching compliance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. So basically you're saying I have to come into compliance, but there's help from the city and from nonprofits in the city with this
Exactly.
work. So what is my first step? How do I even know that I have to comply? I know that there's a tool online. Can you tell me more about how to access that tool to show that I'm a building that needs to comply?
Yes. So if you go to detroitmi.gov/benchmarking, one of the first links is the building ID lookup tool. And if
Okay.
you put your address in that, it'll tell you a couple of things. It'll tell you whether you're required to report, what year you're required to report, like beginning. So if you're a building above 100,000 square feet, you're actually required to report data beginning in January 2023. If you're above 25,000 square feet, you're required to report beginning in January 2024. And then it'll also tell you your Detroit building ID, which is like a single number that connects the virtual account that you're building to the building actually on the map. And so that way we can kind of check which buildings are actually in compliance. And it's a really amazing like data practice that the city employs. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you can check.
How many buildings approximately in the city need to be reporting their energy and water usage?
There is a little over 2,000 buildings in the city of Detroit that are required to comply with this ordinance.
Okay. Okay. That's pretty, how does that compare to other cities?
I would say it is similar to Ann Arbor. I feel like Ann Arbor maybe has a little bit more buildings, but less properties because there's a lot of property owners in Ann Arbor that own portfolios. And I would say, depending on the true like cutoff of building size for the ordinance in other cities, it will really vary and just depend on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like energy, and I say this a lot, energy is one of those systems that are kind of invisible. Like you just turn the light on and you're not sure, where it's coming from, how to really track it. And that's one thing I really like about the benchmarking program that I've seen is it gives building owners some power over their bills. You can kind of see and make some wise choices based on what you're seeing. You can maybe make some improvements to your building based on what you're seeing. So it's kind of that first step of like understanding something that's primarily invisible to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I wondered if you guys have any thoughts, if you could share, why, just generally, why is this important? That's what I see, why it's important to me. But also we're looking at how much energy we're using in terms of greenhouse gas reduction. Can one of you speak to that a little bit and why this work is important?
I would love to just briefly respond to what you said, T, about making the invisible, like just energy use that just kind of shows up on your bills once a month,
Mm-hmm.
truly
Mm-hmm.
visible. I know that energy tracking is really essentially the data backbone of a lot of the work that is being done in energy efficiency, and you can prove that your investment in energy efficiency is actually working through energy tracking
Yes.
year over year, which is so key. Another really important thing to keep in mind is that truly energy efficiency upgrades is one of the strongest ways to combat rising energy costs. If
Okay.
we predict that energy costs are going to rise, and we see we see it rise every year, energy
Every
efficiency,
year.
literally every year we have a rate increase. Energy efficiency is one of the very few ways that we actually have to kind of combat that and to take control of our own consumption and our own, essentially our cost. It's really a dynamic cost at the end of the day. It's not just like static cost that you just leave alone and then it rises on its own. You can do something to your building to make it much more efficient, and then you will be paying less to your utilities.
I mean, I have a home and quite a bit of my money goes to the energy in my home. So I can imagine for building owners, this is a big expense. Do you have any data or thoughts or in terms of like how much of an expense is energy for a typical building owner?
I can specifically speak to a few of the more recent examples for houses of worship. Um, Houses of worship are typically very large buildings to kind of hold their congregation, and not the most, let's say, money generating buildings. And so sometimes there's an issue with deferred maintenance, or even just old HVAC systems, old boilers. So DTE, no, sorry. So utility costs, so utility costs rise year over year. I've seen bills from these houses of worship that look like $10,000 bills, $15,000 bills, and the building is not even that big. It's not even that big.
That
It's
makes
just
me
a
want to
massive,
cry.
yeah, it's just a massive bill. And I say, like, well, you're talking to the right people. You're talking to the right people, because we can kind of engage with you and keep you in this loop of energy efficiency and help you strategize on how you could use your current like output of money to your utility in a way that really essentially sets you up for reducing that cost year over year. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Kendall, do you have any thoughts on this? Why this is important, what you're seeing with building owners in terms of their savings or, yeah, any thoughts from you in your journey
Mhm.
in energy efficiency?
Well, I guess, yeah, just one thing in terms of cost. I'm just thinking about even this year alone. We know the past 2 winters we've had some pretty extreme cold. We've also had extreme heat in the summertime as well.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but even just thinking about this past winter, I'm aware of, a portfolio of buildings in the city that has already spent its gas budget, what it's already budgeted for the year because of the extreme cold we've had. So just thinking about all the implications from that, where there's going to be an additional budget request just because of the cost of utilities. And you know, everybody's trying to budget and anticipate what these expenses are going to be, but our weather, whether it's the heat or the cold, um, and when we have some of these buildings that have deferred maintenance, like Zahra said, there's really no other option but to run and operate the buildings with the older technology and use more energy in order to keep up with the temperature in the building. And related to that, one thing I've kind of said throughout this interview, and I'll just repeat because I think it's summarizing what we're all talking about here. But this benchmarking ordinance, it does allow us to engage with people in Detroit that are operating buildings. And through that engagement, I do think we have this meaningful opportunity to raise awareness about energy efficiency. But what does that mean? Like, to me, that means we're with any of these energy efficiency improvements, potential improvements, there's this opportunity to support the occupant health and well-being, through improving the indoor air quality. There's an opportunity to lower utility costs. And we also talked about reducing carbon emissions and air pollution by reducing the amount of energy that we use to power our buildings. So there's so many more opportunities beyond benchmarking, that we can start to address through buildings and efficiency.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It's so true. Yeah, Zahra, any other highlights that you want to bring to the SBN network around this report? Anything else you want to share with us?
I will say there is chatter among the people who are kind of involved in this work on what's the next step after benchmarking, which is really exciting to think about and really use this data that we're generating to inform either further policy, further programming, or a really robust partnership that kind of starts building owners from this step of benchmarking, which is required by law, to some really amazing either energy auditing programs, energy funding programs, energy project programs. So we really just see kind of like a pipeline forming in the near future to really bring people from this step of just being aware of the impacts of energy efficiency to having just a more energy efficient building. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Any final words from you, Kendal?
Well, I did want to go back because we started talking about data jams and what data jams
Okay.
were. But I did want to just go back because, we have done a series of data jams with your team, and we're going to be doing another upcoming series, I think of 7 data jams that are going to be held at the SEMCOG office downtown, as well as at one of the recreation centers. And so this is just going to be another opportunity for anyone in the city to attend and get support or ask questions. And you had asked, what is a data jam? And Zahra kind of shared a little bit about what that is, but it's open to anybody to attend. Bring your laptop if you have one, bring your utility bills if you have them, or just bring yourself with questions. But this is a part of the outreach that we're doing and the support that we all are trying to provide buildings in Detroit with compliance. And so I just encourage folks to attend. I also want to, again, applaud your team on the entire benchmarking program that you've built out and just how accessible you've made it for people to even schedule one-on-one time, or email or call if there's questions. And then obviously our team also is trying to support and help guide anybody that has questions as well. So just want to make sure people know that these workshops are coming up in April.
In April. Okay. I'm a building owner. I'm sold. I want to join a data jam. I want to have a one-on-one. I want to do all the things. How do I get in touch with you all? And how do I learn about the schedule?
So the City of Detroit's website, detroitmi.gov/benchmarking, will have everything on it. At the very bottom, it shows events, and the upcoming event, the most near future one, is the Data Jam series. So click those and register for one of those, either at some COG offices or at Williams Rec Center in early April. You could also book office hours online. There's another link nearby the events section where you can book half an hour with the Office of Sustainability. You can become a member of the 2030 district, and they'll do like an onboarding call with you. It's totally free to become a member. They do have a tiered paid partnership for more time with them. But if you're a house of worship, a nonprofit, affordable multifamily property, or a childcare center, that second tier is totally free through that amazing CEM grant. So yeah, there's so many ways, and we are literally just waiting here, ready to support you on your journey. Yeah.
All right. Well, if there's no other final words, Kendal, and Detroit 2030 District, I want to thank you for supporting these building owners in this process, and for your advocacy in getting this ordinance passed, and for all the work you do around energy efficiency in Detroit. And Zahra, thank you for all the work that you and your team are doing to administer this ordinance within the city halls, and this amazing report that you produced to provide transparency on what happened the first 2 years of this project, right? And where we are and where we want to go as a city. So thank you for providing transparency for building owners, but also other cities who might want to institute something like this. And thanks for being open. We've included all the links to the websites and the report below. And thank you to our guests. Thank you so much for sharing all of the wonderful ways that people can plug in. And thanks for having us.
Thank you for tuning in to the Sustainable Business Network Detroit, the Green Stream podcast. Remember to like, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure to follow us on SBN-Detroit.org and stay tuned for more conversations on sustainability from inside and around the city.